Good morning, everyone. Bon matin, tout le monde. My name is Nathalie Laviades Jodoin. My pronouns are she, her, and elle, and I am the Vice President of Public Sector Operations and Inclusion here at the Canada School of Public Service. Avant de poursuivre, j'aimerais reconnaître que la terre sur laquelle nous nous rassemblons ce matin est le territoire traditionnel non cédé du peuple Anishinaabe algonquin. Depuis des générations, ils sont les intendants de cette terre, cultivant une relation profonde et durable avec elle. Nous honorons le peuple Anishinaabe algonquin ainsi que ses aînés passés et présents et leurs générations futures. On behalf of the Canada School of Public Service, I thank you for being here today for this very important announcement regarding the action plan for Black public servants. This announcement is actually quite close to my heart, as the school has spent the last year piloting an executive development program to support Black service leaders, public service leaders, some of whom are actually here with us today. With that, I'm very pleased to introduce to you the Honorable Anita Anand, President of the Treasury Board of Canada. J'ai le plaisir de vous présenter l'Honorable Anita Anand, Présidente du Conseil du Trésor du Canada.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for being here today. In particular, the Black public servants who've gone through the pilot program, as well as the folks from Treasury Board whom we've been talking over the last few weeks and months, and I really appreciate you being here and your presence here today. Thank you, Vice President, for those introductory remarks. Et jour après jour, les fonctionnaires fédéraux fournissent des services essentiels aux Canadiens dans tout le pays. Ils méritent de travailler dans un environnement où ils se sentent en sécurité, respectés et valorisés. Mais nous savons que ce n'est pas toujours une réalité pour tout le monde. We know that this isn't always the reality. In fact, 11% of Black public servants have reported having experienced discrimination on the job. That only includes those who responded to a survey done in 2022. I'm sure you know about this survey, but it does speak to the existence of discrimination in the public service. We also found in that survey that proportionally Black employees are more likely in the $50,000 to $75,000 salary range, while in higher salary ranges, their representation is lower than other employment equity groups. So from a pay equity standpoint, from a systemic discrimination standpoint, we have work to do. Ces résultats suggèrent que nous devons redoubler nos efforts. Le racisme systémique ancré dans la société et nos institutions depuis des générations étant l'origine de graves inéquités pour les communautés noires au Canada. Notamment, une moindre progression de carrière et une moins bonne santé mentale. So for several years, we've heard from Black public servants about the need for targeted supports and the need to respect the specific culture and needs of Black public servants. We have listened to some extent and taken some steps to put programs in place, but to be frank, we haven't done enough, and we haven't done it fast enough. I know that there have been challenges in our path to reconcile, and that for many of us, we see that trust in our institutions from the Black community has been broken. I see it. I see it when I speak with you. I see it in your voices, and I know it from the history. And so I am here today to commit on behalf of the Government of Canada to do better. And I am committed, as I have spoken with you already, some of you individually, some of you in groups, that we are going to continue to put supports in place to help to ensure that your concerns are addressed and that future generations of public servants are valued and they are respected in the workplace. Avant de passer à l'annonce de cet événement, je tiens à remercier tous les fonctionnaires noirs qui ont contribué aux recommandations qui ont conduit à l'annonce de près de 50 millions de dollars dans les budgets 2022 et 2023 pour créer des programmes de développement de carrière dédiés et un fonds de santé mentale pour les fonctionnaires noirs. So this includes many of you here today and many others. The representatives from the Black Executives Network, the Interdepartmental Black Employees Network, the Federal Black Employee Caucus, the Black Women's Caucus, the TBS Black Employees Network, and everyone else across the government who continues to push for better supports for Black public servants, but also to ensure that we have a public service where systemic discrimination and inequality are not the reality. So I will move now to the actual announcement. Today, what we're doing and why I wanted to come here in person to discuss this with you is that we're announcing the first initial investments in the action plan to support Black public servants. To support these initiatives, what we have done is signed 3 memoranda of understanding with 3 departments and transferred funding to support their respective activities. And I'd like to talk about these activities, these programs now. The way I think about it is 2 pillars. The first pillar, founded on $5.9 million of funding, is for Health Canada to introduce Black-centric enhancements to the Employee Assistance Program. So there's already an Employee Assistance Program in place. And what we are now doing is ensuring that there are counselors specifically for Black employees. And these counselors themselves will be Black and able to understand and address the targeted supports that we have heard Black public servants want and need. Déjà cette année, cela inclut le recrutement de 19 conseillers noirs supplémentaires, ce qui porte à 60 conseillères noires en total. So that's the first pillar. The second pillar of supports relates to leadership and career development, some of which occurs and will occur in the building in which we are situated right now. Following a successful 12-month professional development program pilot for 17 Black, Indigenous, and racialized executives, the Canada School of Public Service is launching an executive leadership program for Black leaders who are currently in groups EX1, EX2, or EX3. The program will be delivered to 4 cohorts of Black executives, a total of 100 individuals over 2 years, starting this summer. As well, la Commission de la fonction publique s'appuiera sur son expertise et exploitera les recherches disponibles et les contributions des employés noirs afin d'améliorer l'appréciation de ces services de développement de la carrière pour tous les niveaux de fonctionnaires noirs. So these Black-centric programs will support the mental health and career growth of Black public servants and complement the deliberate focus on increasing the representation of Black leaders in existing leadership development programs. So we know what those programs are already, Mentorship Plus and Mosaic. Those are in existence, but those programs aren't enough. And so we are now layering on additional leadership and career development programs on to Mosaic and Mentorship Plus. And I want to say, and say definitively, that our efforts will not stop here. These are early investments which will continue to be guided by the lived experience of Black public servants. Il reste toujours beaucoup à faire pour créer des initiatives afin que les employés noirs de chaque niveau bénéficient d'un soutien tout au long de leur carrière. So what I am saying, in essence, is that we need to commit to addressing systemic barriers so that every Black public servant has the opportunity to flourish in the public service. And I know and spoke earlier about the trust in institutions. And I know that when I'm standing here, many of you will or may say that you have heard these words before. But our efforts will continue. And I hope that your trust in our institutions and in our government will continue. Now I would like to talk about engagement. The Office of the Chief Human Resources Officer, OCRO, established a task force for Black public servants to oversee the development and implementation of the action plan. And it is this engagement, it is this action plan which is giving rise to the announcement here today. This is not an announcement where I and other officials or politicians have been in a room and dreamed up what we think is best for Black public servants. What results today is from the engagement with Black public servants, the task force that was appointed of Black public servants, and the action plan that was devised by you. And so I would just like to, with all sincerity, thank you so much for the work that you have done to allow us to be able to be ensured that the money that we are putting forward together is because of suggestions and recommendations that you yourselves have told us that we need. So what's going to happen in the coming days and the coming weeks is that the task force is going to engage through employee networks, through surveys and discussions with Black public servants to enable continuous improvement on current and future initiatives to best meet the needs of Black public servants. La lutte contre les problèmes de racisme et la discrimination systémique enracinée depuis longtemps de nos institutions n'implique pas seulement la mise en place d'initiatives et de mesures de soutien, mais aussi l'élimination active des obstacles systémiques à l'embauche et à la promotion et à l'inclusion. And more importantly, as I've stressed today, it requires doing this work alongside Black public servants. I know that there is more work to do, but we will keep working with Black public servants to address and prevent all forms of anti-Black racism. Diversity and inclusion, these are words that many of us use all the time. But we have to learn to walk the walk and talk the talk. And that means being very serious and systematically implementing the reform suggestions that are emanating from Black public servants themselves. So thank you so much again for being here today. We have more road to travel, and I look forward to doing it with you. Thank you.
now start the Q&As from media. Je vous demande de demander vos questions. Levez la main, je vais passer un par un. Je vous demande de demander une question et vous présenter. Nous allons prendre les questions dans la salle et passer au téléphone pour prendre les questions. S'il nous reste du temps, on va revenir dans la salle. So I ask you to just raise your hand. We'll go through the room and just present yourself, ask one question. We'll go to the phones for questions, and we'll come back into the room if we have some time at the end. So I'll just look to the room for any questions. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Vous dites que la confiance a été brisée, que vous voyez que vous l'entendez, qu'il reste beaucoup de travail à faire. Que faut-il faire, selon vous, pour arriver à un réel changement de culture dans la fonction publique pour qu'il n'y ait plus de racisme?
Well, je suis heureuse d'entendre dans la question que c'est une question de culture. Parce que je sais que ce n'est pas seulement une question de dénonce des mesures avec l'argent dans le budget 2022-2023. C'est aussi une matière de changer la culture pour nous assurer que tout le monde, surtout les fonctionnaires noirs, peuvent travailler dans une institution, dans le gouvernement, sans discrimination. Mais les changements de culture seront une matière de temps. Ce n'est pas aujourd'hui qu'on va changer la culture. Je sais, comme une femme racialisée moi-même, que c'est une matière de changer la culture et on doit commencer avec tout le monde ici, avec la collaboration, mais aussi avec la fidélité dans nos institutions. Mais je sais que vous avez raison complètement que nous devons changer la culture dans notre institution. Et nous savons que le gouvernement fédéral, c'est une large institution. Donc, ce n'est pas seulement dans le Conseil du Trésor qu'on doit avoir les changements. C'est partout dans notre gouvernement. Mais où est-ce qu'on peut commencer? On doit continuer de changer la culture dans toutes les organisations. Et j'espère que, comme présidente du Conseil du Trésor, je peux être un leader, mais pas seulement moi-même. Je sais que nous devons le faire ensemble et je suis ici de travailler avec tout le monde là-dessus.
Prochaine question. Je vais vous amener le micro. Excusez. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm a reporter with the Ottawa Citizen. Nice to see you. Thanks for being here. Given that you mentioned these are the first initiatives of the action plan and the first set of funding, I'm wondering if you can share if you anticipate that more funding will be announced in the upcoming budget, and how much we might see, and in the next steps, which departments or organizations are likely to see funding.
So just a couple of things to respond to the question. First of all, the initiatives that were in place before today remain. So it is not the case that we're starting with these new initiatives and nothing has been introduced. For example, I mentioned the mentorship program and the Mosaic program. So those will continue. In the past budgets, about $45 million was dedicated to supports like the ones we introduced today. The remainder of the funding within that $45 million still rests with the task force to continue to introduce new programming. And so we will have funding left in the action plan to roll out in subsequent months once we see what is working and what more needs to be done. But again, this is not going to be the president of the Treasury board in a room alone dreaming up ideas. This is collaborative. This is going to be done with Natasha and her group and the task force to make sure that what is being introduced actually is needed and wanted by Black public servants. Such is the case with the mental health supports introduced today, such is the case with the supports for leadership and career development introduced today as well.
Avons-nous d'autres questions? Yes. I'll bring you the mic, sorry. Thank you.
Hi. Hi, thank you. David Thurton from CBC News. I wanted to ask you about the proposed Black class action lawsuit. Your government is challenging this in court. Do you have any plans to settle this lawsuit?
I know that there is a litigation process in place, and the certification decision is expected in the coming months. In addition, I know that Amnesty International has been granted intervenor status, and the Government of Canada will not challenge that decision of the court. So there is still this process in place, and that process began long before I became the president of the Treasury Board. What I want to make sure we do is to bring forward supports for Black public servants. So as we look prospectively, systemic racism that is at the foundation of the Thompson class action lawsuit does not exist.
Okay, and a totally different question. I just want to ask you about the savings that you've been tasked with finding within government. You've been tasked with finding $15 billion over 5 years. Part of that is meant to target the use of external consultants. How significant do you expect these savings to be from reining in the use of these consultants? And when do you think it makes sense to use consultants for government projects?
Okay, so a lot of questions in there, David. I'll start with when I first came into this role, and I released guidelines on the use of external consultants. And the gist of those guidelines was that we need to insert more discipline in the system about decisions relating to the use of external consultants. And in particular, that tasks managers throughout the public service with the responsibility to oversee decisions relating to the use of third-party contractors. And I introduced those measures and those guidelines because of my view that we need to ensure that we are utilizing the capacity and the capabilities within the public service to the extent that we can before making a decision to look to external consultants. So those guidelines that I introduced in the fall are very important, and it is the responsibility of deputy ministers and managers throughout the government to adhere to them. The refocus spending question that you asked at the beginning of your remarks is ongoing. You're correct. It is $15 billion over 5 years and $4 billion every year thereafter. I released the first tranche of results of that review at the beginning of November. And in particular, $350 million of reductions in the use of external consultants. The remaining results, or the next tranche, will be seen when I table the main estimates in a few weeks. And you will see more savings along the lines of the $15 billion that is part of this spending review.
How much for consultants?
That is going to be all tabled in the main estimates. Okay, so I won't be able to carve out a piece of the main estimates right now and talk to you about that, because the first people who see that are the people of Canada in the Parliament of Canada, and that's when I'll be tabling the results. So happy to chat with you after that. But I will also say that we have a second stage of the spending review that was highlighted in the fall economic statement. So this is a matter that we will continue at Treasury Board to take very seriously. As you know, I have some experience in this area from previous portfolios, so I look forward to continuing to do important work in this area. Thank you.
Merci. Est-ce qu'il reste autre question? Is there any other questions?
Sorry, David, those main estimates are next week. So we may be talking sooner than you think.
Autre question dans la salle? Sinon, on va passer au téléphone. We'll go to the moderator on the phone for any questions over the phone.
Thank you. Merci. Please press star one at this time if you have a question. S'il vous plaît, appuyez sur étoile 1 maintenant pour poser une question. There will be a brief pause while participants register for questions. Il y aura un court délai vous permettant de vous enregistrer dans la file d'attente. Our first question, notre première question est de Chantalia Louis de Franco-Presse. À vous la parole, please go ahead.
Oui, bonjour. Vous avez répondu à la question en anglais. C'était pour savoir c'est quoi que vous comptez faire justement pour l'action collective des fonctionnaires noirs en ce moment.
Est-ce que vous pouvez répéter la question?
Vous avez répondu à la question en anglais, mais je voulais savoir pour l'action collective des fonctionnaires noirs, qui est en train de ce moment d'être challengé, justement. Et je voulais savoir, est-ce que vous comptez faire quelque chose pour settlement?
Bien sûr, merci pour la question. Je sais qu'il y a un processus devant le cours maintenant, la Cour. Et comme ministre, je vais respecter ce processus. Mais en même temps, je voudrais nous assurer que nous pouvons introduire les supports pour les fonctionnaires noirs. Et je vois que l'ancien présidente du Conseil de Trésor est ici aussi avec nous, la ministre Mona Fortier, et elle a introduit des supports aussi. Merci beaucoup pour votre travail, Mona. Mais bien sûr, nous continuons avec les appuis que j'ai annoncés aujourd'hui, de collaborer avec les fonctionnaires noirs et de nous assurer que nous pouvons avoir un service public sans discrimination et sans racisme.
Merci.
Merci. Thank you. Once again, please press star one if you have a question. De nouveau, n'hésitez pas à appuyer sur étoile 1 maintenant pour poser une question. Alors, nous n'avons plus de questions au téléphone. We have no further questions on the phone. Ms. Salem, back to you. À vous la parole.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, everyone. I look forward to speaking with you and walking with you in the next months and years. Thank you.